I was hurrying home, the streets already bathed in the soft glow of evening, when I heard firm, measured footsteps behind me. "Stop, please." The voice was deep, low, the kind that doesn't tolerate objections. I froze and turned around. A police officer. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a gaze too observant. He was scanning me from head to toe, as if trying to decipher something hidden. "Your documents?" His tone was official, but I caught a hint of something else beneath it. I pulled out my ID and handed it to him. He took it, his fingers lingering just a second longer than necessary before his eyes met mine again. "Where were you this evening?" "Meeting with friends," I replied calmly. "I need to conduct a personal search," he said slowly. I raised an eyebrow. "Just a routine check?" "A formality." But there was something in his voice that made me doubt it. I nodded, silently agreeing, but something stirred inside me. Something unexplainable. I stepped slightly to the side, and his hand moved faster than I expected, brushing against my wrist. I lifted my gaze, locking eyes with his. There was no aggression there, no roughness. Just something else. Anticipation? Hidden curiosity? "Allow me," his voice was almost soft, yet still held authority. I knew I could refuse, demand a female officer, but for some reason, I didn't. Maybe I wanted to see how far this game would go. As he began the search, I felt his fingers hesitate for a fraction of a second, encountering something he hadn't expected. I saw his eyes widen slightly, his breath grow just a bit deeper. This was a moment he would never forget. I'll take a short pause. Write in the comments where you're listening from, if anything similar has ever happened to you, and what you would do in my place. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next part. Now, I continue. I never expected it to go this far. His hands moved strictly by protocol, first my shoulders, then my back. He took his time, touching just enough to remain within the limits of procedure. But even in that, I felt something more. His fingers paused for just a second as they brushed along my wrist. I felt his breath, slow, steady, yet tense. I should have pulled away. I could have. But instead, I stood still, allowing this invisible game to continue. "Everything all right?" His voice was calm, but there was a faint rasp in it. "Yes," I replied, barely recognizing my own voice. He looked down, continuing the search. I felt how his fingers lingered just a fraction longer in places they shouldn't. Not deliberately. More like, as if his mind said one thing, but his body suggested another. It lasted only a few seconds. But in those seconds, something changed. The room suddenly felt warmer, the air heavier. I lifted my gaze and met his eyes again. There was no longer just professional focus in them. This was the moment when the world stops being black and white. We both knew it. I turned my wrist ever so slightly, just enough for my fingers to nearly brush against his. A tiny, barely noticeable movement. But enough to take a step from which there was no turning back. He inhaled deeper but didn't move. "Do you need to finish the search?" I asked. His jaw clenched, his fingers tightened, then slowly loosened. Yes, his voice was quieter than before. But in that moment, the formality had turned into something entirely different. We both knew, this search had long crossed the line of official procedure. I walked down the street, feeling the cold air hit my face, but it couldn't cool what was burning inside me. My heart pounded as if I had just escaped from a fire. Except the fire was inside. The phone in my pocket vibrated with new notifications. I knew what they were. Missed calls. Messages. Questions. He was waiting for me. The man I had promised to be faithful to. The man who never doubted me. And me? I looked down at my hands, remembering how his fingers had brushed against my wrist. How his gaze, meant to be cold and professional, had shifted into something else. It was a second. One wrong moment. Was it a mistake? Or had something inside me simply found what it had been searching for all along? I couldn't stop thinking about it, even as I stepped into the building, climbed the stairs, and, taking a deep breath, slid the key into the lock. The door opened. "Where have you been?" His voice was calm, but I heard the concern beneath it. I closed my eyes because I couldn't lie. I couldn't tell the truth. And the shadow behind me kept growing, becoming heavier. Now, I had to live with it. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced something similar? Your comments are very important to me. I read each one and truly appreciate your support. Let me know what thoughts and emotions this story brought up for you. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like so you won't miss the next thrilling stories. Write in the comments, "The shadow remains even when the light fades," so I know you listened until the end. Wishing you a great day, and see you in the next story.